I'm not interested in perfection. What I seek is authenticity, and that's rarer than beauty, rarer than intelligence, and even rarer than talent. A truly genuine woman doesn't need to hide her past or craft a polished version of herself just to impress. I'm not looking for someone who has never made mistakes. I'm looking for someone who dares to face her mistakes, rise above them, and still holds on to her character, her kindness, and a clear-eyed view of life. That's strength without show. That's resilience without the need to prove anything. A real person doesn't try to appear flawless in the eyes of others. She doesn't live for applause. She lives because she knows who she is and what she stands for. When everything falls apart, she doesn't fall with it. When misunderstood, she doesn't rush to explain with raised voices or dramatic expressions. She lets time and action speak for themselves. She doesn't use makeup to mask her emotions or say what people want to hear. And it's that honesty, with all its edges and scars, that makes her trustworthy. Such people are hard to find because much of this world is built on illusion, social media, reputation, applause. But I'm not drawn to the flashy. I'm not impressed by polish if it only serves to cover up inner emptiness. I care about how she thinks when no one is watching. I watch how she treats those who have nothing to offer her. I pay attention to the consistency between her words and her actions, between her principles and her choices. And what I need in a companion isn't someone skilled in words or performance, it's someone who can stay grounded in a world that's constantly shaking. She may have failed, she may have been hurt, she may have taken wrong turns. That doesn't make her weak. On the contrary, it proves she has depth, experience, and the courage to return. Someone who's never been in the dark can never truly understand the light. Someone who's never doubted herself can never fully grasp the value of belief. I don't need someone who's never broken. I need someone who dares to rise after falling, but without letting it harden or embitter her. Someone who still holds on to kindness, even when the world hasn't been kind to her. Not everyone is willing to be real in a world that loves pretending. But if I'm choosing someone to walk with, I choose someone real. Not flawless, just not fake. Not here to please the world, just brave enough to be herself, unapologetically. Because authenticity is not a flaw. It's the only foundation strong enough to build something that lasts. I'm not looking for someone who's always cheerful. I want someone who knows how to stand still in the storm. Calmness isn't born from easy circumstances. It's the result of facing chaos without letting it invade your mind. I'm deeply impressed by people who don't get pulled into noise, who don't react impulsively when provoked, who don't let fear steer the wheel. Someone like that doesn't need to shout to assert her presence. Her calm alone is enough to silence a room. Remaining calm in a constantly noisy world is a rare kind of strength. She isn't dragged along by what's trending, doesn't lose direction because of public opinion, doesn't need to keep up with anyone else's pace. She has her own rhythm. She knows what matters and isn't distracted by the trivial. That's not coldness. That's a conscious choice to protect her energy, her clarity, her focus. Each of us only has a limited amount of mental energy each day. The one who knows how to stay calm is managing that energy with the precision of a missile system never firing at meaningless targets. The woman I seek doesn't act out of pressure, doesn't speak just to fill silence, doesn't nod just because the crowd does. She thinks before she responds. When hurt, she doesn't explode, she analyzes. When faced with injustice, she doesn't complain, she acts. Her stillness isn't submission, it's a form of internal control where emotions aren't suppressed but processed like raw data fed into a system of thought and released as the best possible response. I know the value of focus. An idea is just an idea until you eliminate all the surrounding noise and turn it into reality. Likewise, a relationship is just a fleeting emotion unless someone has the clarity to steer its direction, especially when things start to shake. I need someone who doesn't lose herself in chaos, who can look me in the eyes on the worst days and still stay centered, unmoved by short-term emotions, unwilling to quit because of uncertainty. Someone who can control herself when everything outside becomes uncontrollable. Staying calm doesn't mean being unfeeling. On the contrary, it's the highest level of awareness. It requires inner discipline, a solid mental operating system, and the ability to filter emotions like an engineer selecting parts for a spacecraft. There's no room for wasted reactions, no place for emotions born from a lack of control. In a world where chaos is considered normal, calm is extraordinary. And that is the person I want by my side. I'm not interested in people chasing fame or numbers. I want a woman who lives with purpose, not because she needs recognition, but because she refuses to accept a meaningless life. She doesn't work just to be called busy. She works because something inside her compels her to a quiet yet persistent flame that drives her to build, to contribute, to create real value. Her purpose is not borrowed from society, from social media, or from praise. It comes from within. That's what makes her different. I'm not talking about people skilled at performing success. Anyone can hire a stylist team, craft a few fake inspirational posts, and construct a flawless-looking life on the surface. I want someone who works even when no one is watching. No need for an audience, no need for immediate rewards. Someone who understands that lasting results don't come from external motivation, but from a clear internal compass. Money doesn't derail her. Status doesn't blur her. Identity. She doesn't get caught in the game of comparison because she knows exactly why she's living. A person with purpose isn't distracted by shiny but hollow things. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone because each day she wakes with a clear reason to get out of bed and continue. I've seen hundreds of people with talent, opportunities, even support, but they lack the most important thing, meaning. They had every tool, but no compass. And then they wandered, falling into the trap of false success, where you have everything except yourself. The woman I seek doesn't fall into that trap. She builds her own roadmap. It may not be fast, may not be loud, but it's stable and consistent. Because she knows anything without core substance will collapse at the first sign of resistance. I'm not talking about someone who sets goals just to control everything. I'm talking about someone who deeply understands why she exists and is willing to act even without certainty about the outcome. She doesn't need everything to be clear before she begins. She begins and clarity follows. It's that kind of person who earns my trust. When you walk alongside someone with direction, you're not the one dragging them forward whenever doubt arises. They've trained themselves to stay on course, even when the world around them shifts. And someone with clear purpose not only knows what they want, they also know what's not worth trading for it. That's why I choose the woman with vision. She doesn't need to save the world, but she must understand why she exists in it. If there's nothing you're willing to suffer for, then anything difficult will break you. And I want someone who doesn't just survive, but lives with intention. I'm not drawn to easy romance or pretty promises made on sunny days. What I care about is what you do when the sky turns stormy, when plans fall apart, when emotions cool. Loyalty and commitment aren't romantic ideals. They are the foundation of anything meant to last. I need a woman who doesn't walk away when things get complicated. Someone who doesn't use discomfort as an excuse to turn her back, who doesn't hide behind emotions to avoid responsibility. Loyalty isn't about staying when everything's smooth. It's the choice to stay when nothing is certain, nothing is easy, and there's nothing to boast about. Commitment is action, not a mood. It doesn't depend on fleeting excitement. It exists because a decision has been made and repeated day after day. I've seen many people step back simply because they don't feel the same anymore. But feelings change. Feelings are signals, not instructions. A truly committed person understands that. She doesn't let herself be swept away by the erratic rhythms of desire or fear. She stays not because she's stuck, but because she has chosen through reason, through values, through inner clarity. I don't expect someone who never doubts, but I need someone who stays consistent in the midst of doubt. Someone who doesn't use uncertainty as a reason to quit, but as a reason to dialogue, to understand more deeply, to improve. Just like how I treat systems that are faltering, not discarding them, but analyzing and restructuring. The loyalty I speak of isn't blind. It's the kind rooted in understanding, capable of seeing flaws and still not retreating. The kind that chooses to rebuild instead of tear down. Commitment doesn't mean enduring misery. It means you clearly understand what's worth holding on to. And you hold on not out of fear of losing, but because you see the true value of what you're building. The woman I want doesn't waver just because she temporarily feels not loved enough. She will speak up. She will fix things. She will fight not against me, but with me, against whatever threatens the relationship. She doesn't count who's right or wrong. She focuses on what's right to do so we can move forward. I've built companies from almost nothing. I understand deeply what truly lasts. Not technology, not money, but people and their ability to keep their word when it's no longer convenient. In love, as in business, the person I need is the one who still chooses you when every reason to leave is present. Because at that point, commitment is no longer a promise, it becomes character. And character cannot be faked. I'm not looking for someone who only lives for the picture-perfect moments posted on social media. I need someone with vision, a woman who understands that a relationship isn't built on fleeting emotions, but on long-term strategy, on decisions with consequences, on things no one sees but are always present. Trust, perseverance, and the ability to walk together. Someone like that doesn't need fireworks every week to feel loved. She needs a stable foundation to build something greater than just two individuals. Love is a beginning, but it's not enough. What I want is a partner for the future, not a co-star in a short-term script. The woman I seek doesn't view a relationship as a series of cute events. She sees it as a living system. Every interaction is data. Every conflict is a point for optimization. Every success is a milestone. She doesn't get swept up in temporary feelings, doesn't blow things out of proportion over trivial matters, because she's busy focusing on the bigger picture. And in that picture, she's not merely looking for love, she's designing a future, a home that may not be architecturally perfect, but is emotionally solid. A shared life that doesn't need glitter, but does require logic, shared values, and clear direction. I've worked with some of the most complex systems on the planet, and I can say this plainly. Without long-term vision, every structure collapses, no matter how dazzling it looked at the start. Likewise, a relationship without foresight will be eroded by the smallest things. The woman I want doesn't think only about next week or next month. She's thinking 10 years ahead. She considers how we'll raise children, what values we'll pass on, how we'll influence the next generation. She doesn't live by emotional seasons. She operates with the framework of a builder. She doesn't need me to lead everything. She has her own vision. And that's exactly what makes walking together so powerful. Because she's not waiting for me to hand her a goal. She brings her own. And when two people both have clear direction, what they build isn't just love, it's an ecosystem. I don't mind conflict if it's between two people figuring out how to collaborate better. But I avoid wasting time with someone who can't see beyond the next dinner. I'm not looking for cheap romance. I'm looking for someone who understands that sustainability doesn't come from intense feelings, but from strategic alignment. And if she can see the whole system, grasp the interconnected pieces of a relationship the way I see a rocket system, then she's the one I want by my side. Not because she makes me feel good, but because she helps me see farther. I'm not interested in polished perfection. I don't need a woman who always says the right thing, smiles at the right time, shows up properly, and exits gracefully. I choose truth. Not the glossy version crafted to please others. Not the template shaped by media or societal standards. I want to see the real person, the one who dares to show her unfinished parts, who dares to admit fear, who dares to say, I'm not okay, without apologizing for it. Truth isn't attractive in an easy-to-digest way, but it's the only thing from which you can build something that truly lasts. There's an invisible pressure placed on women to be flawless, to be tidy in both emotion and image. But I don't need someone who always maintains appearances. I need someone who dares to show the bare face of her soul, not because she's weak, but because she's strong enough not to fake it. In fact, in any system, pretense doesn't last. It's like a corrupted line of code, it eventually crashes. In love, pretending works the same way. It's unsustainable. It causes both people to forget what's real and what's staged. I've seen enough polished presentations, impressive numbers, with hollow substance. In business, that wastes money. In personal life, it destroys trust. I don't need someone who can perform love. I need someone who can speak truthfully about the past, about mistakes, about feelings and limitations. I'm not afraid of darkness. I'm only afraid no one dares to turn on the light. And In a world increasingly addicted to glitter, choosing truth is a rebellious act, and one I deeply respect. Truth isn't the same as harshness. A person who lives truthfully isn't someone who says everything they think. It's someone who chooses the right thing to say at the right time in a way that doesn't destroy the relationship. Honesty doesn't mean a lack of wisdom. I'm not looking for someone who spills unfiltered emotions. I want someone who has thought things through, processed them, and still chooses to tell the truth, even if it means facing uncomfortable reactions, because that shows they value the relationship enough not to let it live in assumptions. I don't expect the person beside me to always be strong, always steady, always knowing what to do. On the contrary, I respect someone who says they don't know, but are willing to figure it out together. Someone who shows me the parts of themselves that aren't resolved, instead of building a shell that says, I'm fine. Truth doesn't make you weak, it makes you clear. And in any journey from building a company to building a relationship, clarity always outperforms illusion. I don't choose what's pleasant on the surface. I choose a foundation built on honesty, because everything can grow from that. But no matter how beautiful it looks, a fake ideal is just a structure that can't withstand real pressure. Emotions are data, not an operating system. I didn't build companies based on sudden bursts of inspiration. I built them on systems, principles, and the ability to maintain momentum regardless of emotional fluctuations. In relationships, I apply the same mindset. What I need is not someone who reacts to every emotional wave, but someone who knows how to stay steady, especially when emotions are at their most chaotic. Steadiness isn't boring. It's a kind of strength refined through self-awareness, discipline, and long-term thinking. I've worked with incredibly talented and passionate people who couldn't go the distance because they were driven by momentary moods. They made decisions when excited, withdrew when anxious, and had no anchor to hold them steady in turbulence. A woman who lives impulsively by emotion can be captivating in the first few hours, but cannot walk beside me through the coming years. I don't need someone who makes me feel good right away. I need someone who helps me stay on course, especially when everything around us is disoriented. A steady person is not numb. She feels deeply but doesn't let emotions dictate her actions. She can be angry without being destructive. She can be hurt without withdrawing silently as a form of punishment. She responds, she doesn't react. That is the key difference. Because when two people live together, there will be misalignments, collisions, disruptions. What creates sustainability isn't the absence of problems, but the ability to remain consistent in the face of them. I value someone who can say, I'm angry, but I'm still here. I need time, but I'm not leaving. I don't understand yet, but I will try to. That kind of person doesn't turn love into a chemical reaction stage. They make it a technical journey where each part is examined, adjusted, and kept running efficiently. And just as a spacecraft needs orbital stability to escape Earth's gravity, a relationship needs someone who can keep rhythm, regardless of how volatile the atmosphere gets. I don't demand someone who's always right, but I need someone who's always clear. No saying one thing and doing another. No being deeply affectionate today and walking away tomorrow because the feeling changed. Any system worth trusting must be tested under unstable conditions, and people are no different. Steadiness may not be as seductive as explosive passion, but it's what keeps love from either blowing up or drifting apart. I don't need fireworks. I need steady propulsion. And the woman I seek is someone who can keep that rhythm with me, not out of emotion, but through a conscious choice, repeated daily, even when there's nothing exciting to hold on to. I'm not looking for a preacher. I don't need someone to recite life principles from a book. I care about what's shown without being said through choices, behaviors, and how she responds when no one is watching. True faith doesn't need speeches. It shows in the way someone walks through the dark without panic, in the way they still choose kindness when they have every right to do the opposite. I'm drawn to someone who lives with belief, not because she wants others to agree, but because it's what sustains her from the inside out. She doesn't impose her beliefs on others. She doesn't need to be right to feel worthy. Her strength doesn't come from winning arguments, but from being clear with herself. I've seen many who can talk beautifully about noble ideas, but fall apart when everything collapses. In contrast, the woman I want doesn't say much, but acts with principle. When betrayed, she doesn't retaliate. When disappointed, she doesn't grow bitter. When rejected, she doesn't turn pain into a weapon. That's not weakness. That's faith proven through adversity. Faith doesn't mean denying reality. It's how you stand firm amid things you can't control. I've often invested in things that never existed before: electric cars, rockets, AI. Those things didn't come from conventional logic. They required a kind of belief that preceded proof. The woman I seek understands that. She believes in what hasn't yet appeared, not blindly, but because her heart knows there are truths data hasn't yet caught up with. She doesn't need certainty to act. She acts, then creates certainty from her steps. She may quietly pray in the morning, not to ask for something, but to maintain balance. She doesn't need to say she's strong. She shows it in the way she continues every single day, not with showiness, but with consistency. Maybe she's experienced loss. Maybe she's lost faith in people, but she hasn't abandoned her capacity to trust. She chooses to love again, to believe again, even knowing the risks. That's the kind of faith I respect most, not because it's never doubted, but because it has doubted, has hurt, and still chooses to remain open. I don't demand the same belief system, but I do need to know what she believes in when everything falls silent, because it's in that space, without stage lights, without applause, that a person's true essence is revealed. And if she can stand firm with inner conviction, no need for validation, no need for fanfare, then I know she's not just living for today, she's building something timeless, and I want to keep building it with her. I don't expect a woman to be without flaws. That expectation is both irrational and inhuman. I'm not seeking perfection, I'm seeking authenticity. Perfection is easy to construct but impossible to maintain. Authenticity, though, sometimes rough, sometimes hard to swallow, is the only thing that can truly endure. I want someone brave enough to live in alignment with herself, even when that's inconvenient, unattractive, or unlikely to win applause. Someone who dares to say, I was wrong, who dares to admit, I'm tired today, who dares to let me see the unresolved parts within her. We live in a world saturated with images, where everything is edited, curated, and presented as if everyone is living a flawless life. But I don't need an actress in a well-written script. I need a human being, someone who can speak about her failures without painting them into valuable life lessons, if that's not how she truly feels. Someone who can laugh loudly when joyful and go quiet when in pain, not to seem mysterious, but because she needs space to breathe, to understand, to heal. Authenticity doesn't need performance. It speaks for itself. I've worked with systems that operate at ultra-precision levels, where even a tiny deviation could lead to disaster. But in human relationships, it's the imperfection that binds. No one can wear a mask forever, and the person willing to remove it early, even just a little, is the one I find trustworthy. Not because they are complete, but because they are not deceptive. The woman I seek doesn't pretend to always know what to do. She's smart enough to ask when unsure, humble enough to listen when misaligned, and strong enough not to turn flaws into shame. She may be messy, sometimes late, sometimes overly reactive, but she doesn't hide it. And that very transparency creates a deep kind of safety, not because you always know what she'll do, but because you know she's not hiding anything. I don't need a perfectly programmed companion. I need a human being in motion, learning to love, learning to forgive both me and herself. Authenticity isn't perfect, and that's a good thing, because it's the tiny cracks in someone's surface that let real light in. I don't need her to have all the answers. I just need to know that when she says, this is me, it's not a polished version optimized to be accepted, but the only version she's willing to live with every day. And if she can bring that version to me undefended, unedited, then I know I'm speaking to a real human being. And that is the only beginning that holds any value. I'm not looking for a missing half to fill a void. I don't need a woman who lives in waiting, hoping someone will come along and complete her, like some tired line from a romantic film. I want someone who's already whole, an independent, self-aware individual who knows who she is, what she wants, and why she chooses to walk alongside someone else. She doesn't need me to feel valuable. She creates that value herself, every single day, in how she lives, in what she does, in how she looks at the world with responsibility, not delusion. She doesn't come from a place of dependency. She comes with something greater, a conscious and intentional desire to walk together. She's not looking for someone to rescue her, nor someone to lean on when the wind gets rough. She's learned how to stand tall. But what makes her special is that she doesn't turn independence into a fortress. She doesn't trap herself in strength to prove anything. On the contrary, she opens the door not out of lack, but because she knows some things can only be built when two people face the same direction. Partnership is a choice, not an escape from loneliness. I've seen many relationships fail, not for lack of love, but because one or both entered from a place of need rather than choice. When you need someone to feel whole, you'll always feel incomplete. You'll drain them because the hole inside can't be filled by another person. The woman I seek doesn't carry the expectation that love will fix the past or blur the parts that haven't healed. She's already gone through that process herself. She may have scars, but not dependency. She may still have fears, but no longer runs from them. She chooses love to multiply energy, not to outsource emotional weight. She has her own world, not opposed, not separate, but parallel. A place filled with her own projects, her dreams, and pieces no one else can replace. And when she opens the path for me to step in, it's not because she can't go on alone, but because she believes she can go further with the right partner. She doesn't love to possess, she loves to co-create. No control, no demands, no pressure to mold into something. Only one question matters: what could we build together that's greater than what we could build alone? I'm not looking for dependency, I'm looking for resonance. Not 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 equals ecosystem where two individuals don't dissolve into each other, but together create something neither could alone. If she comes needing someone to define her, I can't be that person. But if she comes knowing who she is and still chooses to walk beside me, then I know this is the beginning of something not only sustainable, but capable of creating real value. And to me, that's the only kind of connection worth investing time, energy, and trust.